Welcome to Media Morsels, a podcast about creativity and the media that feeds it. I'm Jessica Linkhart, character and aesthetic enthusiast.
I'm Jamie Sykes, the plot guy.
I'm Mitchy Monster, the guy that takes a look at effects and audio.
And I'm Claire Miller, a guest on this show.
Yes, and I feel like you're sort of like the general easygoing critic.
Yes.
Yes.
I just take enjoyment in media, and I am not hard to please.
You're here for the vibes.
Which is important.
For vibes and good times.
Yes.
And beer.
And also, we have the set pets, Bo and Bonnie. So if anybody hears any suspiciously dog-like sounds, it's because...
It's a suspicious dog.
Yeah, it's a suspicious dog. And this week, we watched Willow 1988, which, if you don't know, there is a new Disney Plus show that sort of picks up where this movie left off, which is one of the reasons why it's kind of under this category that we're doing to sort of start out with Media Morsels, which is movies that are kind of obscure and little known, but went on to launch TV shows. Often quite successful. Although I guess it remains to be seen with the
Yes, the
Willow
new show.
Disney Plus TV show.
Not
Now,
sponsored.
when we're talking about Willow the movie today, we're not going to be talking about it in relation to the new show at all, are we?
No.
Because only Jess has started watching it, I think.
Yeah, I'm the only one who has started watching it among us. I mean,
Among Us.
Maybe, I think I might mention one or two things that I've already observed.
But this is not a comparative analysis.
Yes, generally this is going to be considering Willow 1988 as its own entity.
The movie for what it brought to the table,
Yeah.
the industry, and just as itself.
Yeah. So here on Media Morsels, we like to sort of break down each work of art, each piece of media into sort of a almost like a three-course dinner. So there's the appetizer round, which is a spoiler-free sort of look at the story, or, you know, whatever the piece of media is we're looking at, along with sort of an introduction to how we first encountered it, followed by the main course, which is definitely a chock full of spoilers, look at the movie in this case, and discussion of all the things that happen in it and all the things that we're really interested in. And finally, we will move into the dessert round, which is where we kind of reflect on how it might have inspired us as creatives in the past and how it might continue to do so in the future. So, with that, let's go ahead and move into the appetizer round. So I will go ahead and start us off. This is one of the earliest movies that I remember watching.
Wow.
This is one of the really, really old deep cuts. It was like Star Wars and Willow and Labyrinth. Those are like the three that I very clearly remember watching and being obsessed with. And according to my sister, whenever I watched it as a kid, me and my sister were both obsessed with it. Confirmed by my parents when I was talking to them on the phone about this episode. They were like, oh yeah, I remember you guys used to watch that all the time. But I think at the time, like, I knew that the story was about Willow, this Nelwyn who is taking this baby on this adventure, right? But I think as a child, the part that I was most interested in and the part that my sister was most interested in was Mad Mardigan.
The hot guy.
the scoundrel, the ne'er-do-well with a heart of gold.
Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer, played by Val Kilmer. But we'll get into the description of that later. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this one is a very deep cut for me.
See, that's different from me because I didn't see this movie till I was, I'm going to say, at least in middle school or high
Really?
school.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know, it didn't come up on my radar. I saw it after I had seen the Lord of the Rings movies. So, I saw it through a different perspective a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think I came to it even later. I'm pretty sure you're the one who showed it to me, babe.
Really? I think I remember that. That was kind of early relationship,
Yeah,
wasn't
like,
it?
I was aware of its existence, but I'd never really been drawn to it. But this was one of the ones that you introduced me to.
Yes, and it convinced you I have amazing taste, right? right?
I mean, they did pick each other, so
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. All right, and you?
I honestly was aware of this movie, but I think I might have saw it when I was really little, and then I just recently rewatched it. I know that it was on my family's radar for the longest time. They both seemed to really enjoy it, but yeah, it didn't really play too much of an effect on my creativity, but
And then you watched it.
and then I rewatched it, and I'm like,
Oh my god.
oh my god.
Where has this been all my life?
See, I saw this later in life, but then I saw it quite a lot because my little brother, who's quite a few years younger than me, loved this movie, and we very rarely like the same movies. So we would watch this all the time on car trips and stuff.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Back in the day. All right. Well, with that, why don't we, Jamie? Why don't you give us the quick spoiler-free overview?
Okay, so we're dealing with some high fantasy / epic fantasy classic fairy tale story structure here. We're introduced to a magical baby being sent down the river to avoid being killed by an evil queen. That evil queen's army is in pursuit, but the baby is intercepted by a Nelwyn, which is this fantasy universe's little people. And that Nelwyn has a big fate ahead of him.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. I feel like you could be like one of those like Mr. Movie thing.
In a world.
Hey, if anybody's looking for...
All right, yeah. This is a pretty typical on the surface. It's a pretty typical sort of like high fantasy adventure story, and with a chosen one. Only in this case, the chosen one is a baby. Is a literal baby,
and the main character is not technically the chosen one.
Yeah.
It's like a proto Chosen One story. It's like what happens before the Chosen One is chosen.
Well, and I think this particular work kind of plays with what it means to be the chosen one, which very handily sort of segues us very quickly into the main course.
Yeah, go ahead and pause this podcast. We'll be here. We have the table set for you.
We'll be waiting when you get back.
It'll be like
fill up
2
your
hours,
plate.
but you know what? We have a microwave. It's fine.
Yeah, go fill up your plate. We'll be here when you get back. So much happens in this movie.
Oh, yes.
You have, like we said, Willow, who is a Nelwyn, and much like a hobbit in The Lord of the Rings, who basically has this child dumped
Wash
in
up on his river.
Yeah, wash up on the riverbanks, and his whole family just decides to adopt her, even though he's like, no, put it back!
Yeah, Willow is very much in, like, the refusal of the call mode, because he's like, hey, call to adventure has showed up on my front door.
No.
I don't want anything to do
he's
with
like,
this.
Nobody in this family is allowed to love that baby, and then instantly falls in love with her, like, the moment this baby looks at him, which I would too, because
It's a beautiful baby.
The baby that they got in this role is so precious.
It is a very cute baby.
I wouldn't be able to resist either.
We actually looked it up and discovered it was 2 twin girls playing the baby. So.
Yes. But apparently there's a prophecy around this baby. She has like a special mark on her arm that it tells everybody that she is the chosen one, and
to defeat the evil queen.
Bavmorda. Yeah, I feel like that's a good.
It's a good fantasy evil name.
Yes. So yeah, unbeknownst to Willow, that's this baby, and all of Bavmorda's people are looking for this baby, and he gets roped into this whole dog and pony show.
Literally.
And over the course of the movie, he picks up several different helpers, and they're all just these
hapless idiots.
Yeah, ragtag team. You've got Mad Mardigan, played by Val Kilmer, who is this scoundrel, ne'er-do-well.
He's fantasy
thief.
Han Solo.
Yeah, thief and master, but also master swordsman.
Yes.
He's first introduced in a small little cage on a crossroads.
Yeah, hanging.
And he looks very disheveled. He has very, very bad teeth. And throughout the entire movie, he's just seen casually just flossing his teeth.
Yeah, he has a slow glow up.
Yeah, he has a slow glow up.
A slow up, if you will.
Yeah. So he ends up by various turns of fate being connected to them and getting roped into this party that starts to form around Elora, the baby. There's 2 brownies who are like tiny, tiny little people and also total idiots. Basically, Elora has 4 disaster dads. Well, sorry, 3 disaster dads and 1, like, Willow is the one, like,
Good dad.
One
dad.
competent dad. And that's one of the best parts about Willow's character, I think, is that he is a father and he has a family, so he's not your typical hero. You know, he has connections and he has a life.
Yeah, and he isn't resentful or anything either. He is just, like, he can be a jerk at times, sort of, to Mad Mardigan, but Mad Mardigan is also a jerk.
He's just giving what he gets.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, that's a really good point, because, like, there's sort of this inciting incident after he finds the baby, where the evil queen's hellhounds, rat dogs?
I think they're called death dogs.
But I mean, I think Claire had a very good description of them.
The hog dogs?
Yes.
Or
I
like,
don't even know what they
hog
are.
dogs with, like, rat tails.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What they are is Dobermans with fur rugs draped over them.
They're having the best time.
They are, you can tell.
But
Tearing up things.
These evil dogs show up to, like, you know, wreck the Nelwyn village. And a lesser movie, this would have been when Willow lost his family, and it's what would have, like, driven him on this adventure. But no, he rescues his daughter, his son manages to hide, and his wife is at home with the magic baby. They're all fine.
Yeah.
And they stay fine for the whole movie.
Yes.
Which is
Willow,
refreshing.
Yes.
Yes.
Willow never undergoes man pain. His relationship with his wife is great. He obviously loves her, and he gets to
He
go back to
loves-
her at the end.
He loves his children. And what calls him out of the Nelwyn village, what spurs him to continue this quest, because he has at least one point where he can walk away.
Yeah, he
like
gives the
one or
baby to
two-
Mad Mardigan.
Yeah.
And
He
just-
has a few of them.
Yeah,
where he
he's-
can
he has
walk
many
away.
chances to leave.
But he doesn't. And it's not because, you know, of man pain, like, oh, the sorceress killed my wife and children. He's like, no, this is just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I am the person who can, you know, I may not be the best person to do this. He certainly doesn't think he's the best person, but somebody has to do it. And he's like, I'm better than these other chuckle fucks. 'Cause,
Yes.
like, Mad Mardigan is...
Well, Mad Mardigan immediately loses the baby to some thieving brownies who, like, the next scene after he departs is a couple of fairies riding a hawk that is carrying the baby through the air.
Yeah,
Like,
and
that is
Willow's
how-
just like,
that is how
"What?"
well that goes.
Yeah, once they leave the baby with Mad Mardigan. So yeah, this whole team is sort of forming around the baby Elora. Mm-hmm. So she's got Willow, Mad Mardigan, the 2 brownies. They go and they pick up what is supposed to be a super powerful sorceress, but she's been turned into an Australian possum.
For presumably, like, 60 plus years.
Yeah, for a very long time. So she's not nearly as much help as they thought she was going to be. And eventually, the evil queen's
Beautiful daughter.
who has been chasing them, she has this conversion moment.
Well,
that
she has a fast burn romance
she
with Mad
does,
Mardigan.
which we will definitely get into in a minute. I just kind of want to get to the end.
Yeah,
Um,
romance at knife point is basically the summary there.
Yes. So she switches sides for the D. And so like that sort of like completes their party, but they go on all sorts of adventures and twists and turns, and there's like a lot of really good action sequences.
Oh, yeah.
Some really good fantasy action
Didn't you
sequences.
look up who the, like, stunt coordinator was?
Yes.
Like, what they also did?
Okay, let's see here. Stunt coordinator. Where
Didn't they
did
do
you
Indiana
go?
Jones, you were saying?
Yeah.
At least one of them, yeah.
Well, I think we were also looking at the composer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tons of really cool action scenes that eventually culminates in them getting to the evil queen's
Evil Fortress.
evil fortress that looks very evil. There's like literally skulls just
Everywhere.
like
Just
everywhere.
piles of
them.
skulls.
It's like
She went to evil IKEA and picked up the bulk skull selection.
Yeah. I wouldn't even see it. I wouldn't even say she's like evil Martha Stewart, because I feel like Martha Stewart would have been a little bit more.
Well, it would be arranged more artfully.
It would be arranged more artfully. This was just
piles of skulls.
Leaning all in.
Yeah.
So the soundtrack was by James Horner. He worked on The Mask of Zorro. And then,
which you can totally tell because there's like this little sting like ba-na-na,
Yeah.
like that
And
comes up.
yeah.
And I was like, this sounds like the Mask of Zorro. And lo and behold.
It was Mask of Zorro. He also did Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And you can hear that
You
all
can
through.
hear that.
Yeah.
Stunt coordinator is Gary Crampton. He's known for the Disney's Three Musketeers, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the Merlin TV series.
And
Yeah.
you definitely see that DNA in this.
Yes,
as well.
you definitely can see all of those things. Yeah, so they get to the Evil Queen's castle. There is this really epic... Finally, Willow is able to transform the Australian possum woman, who has now undergone several animal transformations. And in Willow's botched attempts to, like, return her to her human form. She's finally a human again. She and Willow go in, and they challenge the Evil Queen. And there's this really awesome...
Old lady fight.
Old lady
cat fight.
Sorceress fight. And they save the baby, and they banish the evil queen, and...
Happily ever after.
And happily ever after, like, Mad Mardigan and Sorsha, the evil queen's daughter, like, clearly are gonna get married and take care of Elora, the baby, and Willow gets to go home.
As a hero.
As a hero, and become a sorcerer, which is what he's always wanted. At the very beginning of the movie, he's just this farmer who knows a few sort of, like, illusion tricks, like not real magic, just tricks, but he really wants to be a sorcerer, and everybody laughs at him. But by the end, when he returns, he really is a sorcerer, and he is a hero. So it is just a really good, like, feel-good movie. And the ending is really happy, but it feels earned.
Yeah,
So-
it's not like schmaltzy. It's not like, oh, everything is perfect forever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we've been through some shit, and this is our reward.
And we came out alive, and now we're gonna celebrate.
Yes.
So
The movie follows some very common tropes that probably everyone recognizes, and it's a classic fairy tale of good defeating evil. But the thing is, it does some things really well, and it holds up over time. Like, you can rewatch it now, and it actually feels a bit like a breath of fresh air, because
Yes.
some things they did were very unique.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I want to say, I know that in, like, Lord of the Rings, there's a mostly male traveling party.
And that's true here, too.
It's true here, too, but I think the key difference is the chosen one is a baby.
Yes.
And they're having to take care of this baby. And usually in a scenario like this, it would either be that there's a female character who takes care of the baby while the men are doing the, other adventuring stuff.
Man things.
Or it would be a bunch of idiot men who know nothing about babies, like, bumbling their way through this. But this one actually kind of splits the difference, and it has, like, Willow is a father. He knows how to take care of babies. He really
He's
cares.
an engaged father.
He is an engaged father. He knows all about how to feed a baby and how to,
how to change a
how
baby.
to change a baby, how, if she's sick, how to comfort her, what to feed her, what's safe to feed her and what's not.
Like, he also calls them bobbins.
Yeah.
Like, it's so
kids,
cute.
He calls them little bobbins.
Yeah.
He calls all the kids bobbins.
He clearly enjoys being a father.
Well, yeah, like, Willow is a great example of, like, positive masculinity.
Oh my god, yes.
Because, Willow, played by Warwick Davis, the
Yes.
incomparable Warwick Davis, all of his victories in this movie are, like, pulling on his skills as a father, as a farmer, and as a stage magician.
Yes.
Which, like, none of those are things that are commonly, like, big damn hero traits.
soldiery or anything
And yet,
like that.
he's clearly the hero of
Yes.
this story.
Like, the baby may be the quote-unquote, like, magically chosen one, but in the plot, it is explicitly stated that the baby chose him to be her caretaker.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I really think is cool and non-traditional about this story, is that the chosen one is a baby. This baby is helpless. She is important and magical, supposedly, but we never really get to see that. It's just, like, she is important. And what makes her important may not even be that she's like magical and that she's supposed to become an empress or whatever. It's the fact that the people that gather around her, that she chooses in sort of a roundabout way, they are the ones that get her to where she needs to be and basically do all the work to defeat the evil queen. Like, she is the MacGuffin.
Yeah, she's basically the One Ring in a diaper.
But like, a positive One Ring. And I think that's a really interesting take on the Chosen One. And the Chosen One isn't the person who really defeats the evil. It's really all about, like, a Chosen One needs a team of people, and that team of people, it would be impossible to defeat the evil queen without
The full team.
The full team. Chosen One status be damned. And that's really interesting.
It is, and one thing that I also liked is that throughout this movie, it shows a lot about the choices that people make and how common everyday people can make choices to have greater impact on good. And
well, yeah, like that opening sequence.
yes, the opening scene always gets me because it's this nameless nursemaid who sneaks the baby out of the castle. For context, the evil queen has gathered all the pregnant women in the land because she knows about this prophecy to defeat her with the baby.
Yeah.
And it's very Moses-esque, actually, in the beginning of the movie. But so this old nursemaid sneaks the baby out and floats her down the river on, like, a piece of grass.
A perfectly sized moss.
Baby-sized piece of moss. To
I
save
feel like
the
it's
baby.
like sort of a peat or like...
Yeah, peat moss or something.
Yeah.
But she saves this baby as the dogs hunt her down, and we can assume she was killed
literally
by them.
tear her apart.
Yeah, and just that scene, she did this with just out of the goodness of her heart to defeat the evil queen, and she's never named in the movie.
Yeah. Neither is Elora's mother. Elora's mother is just a nobody peasant.
Yep.
And I that's also really interesting to me. It's kind of like, it's what Rey's from the most recent Star Wars arc. That's really what Rey's origin should have been. Like,
just
wasn't
from
nobody.
before they were
from
like
nothing.
Before they were like, somehow Palpatine returned and somehow Rey is a Palpatine.
I still remember the sinking. I still remember the sinking feeling when I saw that text roll.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Please.
So,
no.
but this feels like the version of Rey that should have been. Elora's mother is just a
some
peasant.
person. Yeah.
And-
nothing special.
Yeah. And greatness still is born from her. And she does everything she can, what little she can, to convince somebody to help her save her baby.
And even though she just had her baby, when the queen comes to confront her, she still has her moment of courage,
Yeah,
too.
she's
where
defiant.
she's like, my baby will defeat you. And
You evil hag!
Yeah.
You evil bitch!
Kill her.
Yeah. And that's just really, that whole thing is really interesting. And yeah, the heroics of the common person.
And that is a recurring theme throughout the entire movie.
Yep.
Yeah. And the fact that, it all depends on people's choices. Yeah.
even on the queen's choice, because if you think about it at the end, like, the queen kind of brought about her own prophecy of Elora defeating her, because if she had never hunted Elora down, those circumstances would never have arisen that sent her to the other realm.
It's very Greek tragedy in that way.
The funny thing was, I was thinking, I knew the movie didn't end like this, but I was like, wouldn't it have been funny if instead of Elora defeats the evil queen by killing her, it's like, just like everybody else in this damn movie, the evil queen takes one look at that baby and is like, God damn it.
That's a cute baby.
That's a cute baby. I can't kill this baby. And then she, like, converts to, like, good, and is like, I'm just gonna be the best mom/grandma to this baby I can possibly be.
Oh my gosh. I just had a thought of her as Mad Mardigan's mother-in-law, though.
Oh,
she could let her evil queen come out
yeah,
there.
speaking of nightmare mother-in-laws, good lord. But Bavmorda doesn't have to do that, because her daughter does it, kind of. So, like, I described this as undergoing the evil sorceress to tradwife pipeline. So, Sorsha is won over to the side of good from being the leader of the armies of evil by Mad Mardigan being hot. And them holding knives to each other's throats in turn throughout the film.
And looking at each other with, like, dilated pupils
Just
and, like,
dripping with sexual tension.
Here's the thing, though. Like, what's really fun is how they first meet.
Oh, yeah.
Because it
yes.
honestly puts a lot of, like...
It is the weirdest meet cute
Well, Mad Mardigan's in drag, hiding from an angry husband of a barmaid that he's betting.
Yeah.
And then she's coming out, stanced up in her
Full
Japanese,
army kit.
army kit. And, I don't know, there's just, a very fun dynamic play here.
So yeah.
And they're immediately into each other.
Yeah, Mad Mardigan is in drag. Sorsha and her cronies arrive at this tavern, and they're still looking for Elora, and somehow Willow, Elora, Mad Mardigan, and the brownies have all ended up in the same place, and Mad Mardigan is using Elora to try to sell his drag persona so that the husband of the woman he was just fucking won't try to kill him. And unfortunately, the husband then immediately starts trying to paw at Mad Mardigan.
He's super into Mad Mardigan.
Super into.
And says the line,
"Wanna breed?
Want to breed."
It's super cringy.
Yeah, it's one of those lines that makes you just sink back into the couch to get away from the screen.
And Mad Mardigan is like, tempting, but no.
Yeah, Mad Mardigan does good.
Yeah, but yeah, so he has, Mad Mardigan's in drag. He has Elora. Sorsha, and her soldiers bust down the door and come in, and she's like, "Is that your baby?" And he's like, "Yes." And then as soon as Mad Mardigan sees her, he's like,
"You're beautiful.
You're beautiful." And then when she tries to take the baby, he, pushes her, and she's like, "And you're strong." And then she, it's this weird,
There's definitely
they give
a
a
back and
look.
forth as soon as they get together.
And then she's like, "You're not a woman," and rips off his veil, and thus begins the grand chase.
There's this.
This literal chase, but also the figurative chase, the metaphorical chase for chasing love.
Yeah, and at some point, Mad Mardigan gets alien sex pollened by the brownies to be even more into her.
Very, very sex pollen.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, but the trope is alien sex pollen because of the spray painted artichoke from Star Trek.
Yes.
What?
Oh, you haven't seen
I don't
that?
even know what
Oh
you're
my god.
referencing.
Guys,
Okay,
this is
Star Trek the original series. That's the originator of the alien sex pollen trope.
Yes.
And the flower that originated that pollen, the prop department just used a spray painted artichoke.
Yes.
Oh.
I will show you this episode because at some
Is this
point in the
with
near
Kirk and
future.
Spock?
Yes.
Spock is the one that gets alien sex pollen.
Because of course he is.
Yes.
Kirk doesn't need it.
It's one of the it's one of my favorite
Kirk willingly
episodes.
every Tuesday.
But yeah, Mad Mardigan gets smacked in the face with a love potion and starts spouting poetry at Sorsha, which, to be fair,
It's pretty good poetry.
It really is.
it's very cheesy. But if I saw Sorsha lying on a bed of furs, her
Oh, yeah,
wonderful,
Yeah,
like
to be
curling,
fair, Sorsha's curls are very beautiful.
curling red hair,
Well-
I might start spouting poetry.
Yeah,
too.
he gets into the tent and she's lounging on her pile of furs with her lightly tousled auburn hair in the soft candlelight and her perfectly done eyebrows and lips,
Yeah.
even though she's just gone to bed
See,
out of
okay.
heavy armor.
Earlier that day, she had captured Willow and Mad Mardigan, and they're, trading barbs, and I don't remember what she says, but she calls him, a slave at some point, and I was like, there is a master-slave kink.
There's all kinds of
there's
kinks.
all
Yeah,
kinds
we
of
have a
kinks.
list of kinks. We'll go into that later.
But I think she had all.
She was waiting for him to show up.
She was going to rest up and then call upon
to send
him.
for him.
Send for him. Bring my slave to me. That's what I believe was.
What'd she say? It's oh, well, you're asking for death. And he says, your touch is worth 100,000 deaths. And I'm
I was
just
like, damn,
ooh.
what a line.
Yeah, all right, yeah.
It's a cheesy ass line, but it might get me. Especially with the knife at the throat.
So, mind you, while this is all still happening, he's still partially in that dress. He's in the pink dress. He has actually girdled his loins and,
Yeah,
So he spends half the movie in the drag dress in various states of disarray.
Yeah, because
He does have to lose his shirt a few times through the movie because it's Val Kilmer.
Yes. Well,
It's
you gotta show
peak
the
body
goods.
Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
What, is it immediately pre or immediately post Batman?
this is pre-Batman.
Pre-Batman, yeah. So he was
Getting
working
in
his
shape
way up.
for Batman.
Yeah, the dress that he wears in drag, he wears that for half the movie in various.
Yeah, it's not just this one-off
configurations.
gag.
Yeah.
So one thing that I do admire about this movie is it does have some pretty good continuity of things that just seem like throwaway jokes or just throwaway character traits, they come back.
Until we get to the magically spelled walking pot thing.
Yeah.
At the very end.
That's the greatest shame.
I think that's okay without, like, because it's not necessarily a break in continuity. It's just it's tossed out.
It
the
is a
window.
missed opportunity. At some point during the final battle, the sorceresses are fighting, and this
the girls are fighting.
Yeah, this pot gets like spelled into like being animated, and
Sort
it's
of like a Beauty and the Beast furniture.
Yes, it's like walking
come
around
alive.
and stuff, and then Willow defeats it and like shoves it out a window, and then the camera immediately cuts to where Mad Mardigan is fighting this other, high-ranking guy
At the bottom
Baptista.
of the tower, presumably below that window.
Yeah, presumably below that window, like he's fighting this guy, and I kept waiting for the pot, the animated
To
pot,
fall
to
on
just
his head.
fall on his head, but it didn't happen, and we don't know what happened to the pot. Is it still wandering the countryside to this day?
I think this movie was the first one to propel Warwick Davis to fame, too.
That's not true, because he did a lot of work in the early trilogy Star Wars films.
Did he?
Yeah.
Because I thought it said he was 17 when he was filming this movie.
He was Wicket.
Yeah.
He was one of the Ewoks in the third original
Oh.
Star Wars movie.
Okay.
Oh, he had to be like 14 if he was 17 in this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was
Okay.
13. All right.
So he has had a long and storied and well-deserved career.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. He's also in the Willow show. So
Yeah,
He's
the
also
sequel,
in-
Yeah,
sequel
yeah.
series.
Also in Harry Potter.
Which I will go ahead and say, my one sort of comment about the show that I will make before I pass judgment on it by watching all of the episodes is I don't feel like the show is actually very necessary at all, because to me it seemed like Alora already fulfilled the prophecy.
Mm.
She might have gone on to do other really interesting things in her life, but
there's no need to retread this
but there's
plot.
there's no need to retread the whole, actually she still needs to defeat the evil, and it's like she already did that, and she did that not by herself but with like this group of people. It's a playing with and it's subversion of the chosen one trope.
Brilliantly done.
So I'm already kind of going in with like, I'm trying to consider this sort of a related but separate work, because I don't really think that it needed to happen. I don't think it adds anything to the story. This was good enough on its own.
I'm excited to see the roles kind of flipped now for Willow himself. Before, he was sort of the pupil of sorcery and learning along the way of his journey. And what
Now
I'm
he's the
hoping,
teacher.
he'll be kind of like the Finn Rizal sort of character,
Yes.
where he's the sorcerer who's wise and is teaching. But like you said, I don't know if it necessarily had to be the person he was teaching now is Alora. Like, it could have been a different storyline.
Or we could have followed Elora doing other different exciting things that have nothing to do with Bath Morda or anything related to that. Like,
Yeah.
she might have been destined for other interesting and great things, but they didn't necessarily have to be directly related to what happened here, I guess. We don't have to retread that. So, I want to go back to talking about Mad Mardigan and Sorsha, because...
I mean, of course.
because TBH, like... That's
A romance for the ages.
yeah. Well, and also, out of all the characters, like Willow and Mad Mardigan, they definitely get like the most character development. And I actually really like Mad Mardigan's arc from being basically
A wretched turd.
yeah. And literally being like, I serve no one, to being like, you know what? I serve Willow and Alora. I have a purpose, and I have people that I want to fight for, and like a future I want to fight for, and stuff like that. I like his arc. But anyway, but also let's get to the main attraction,
The meat
which
of
is
it.
the attraction with Mad Mardigan and Sorsha. And oh my god, they knew what they were doing.
Yes.
Oh, they definitely did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were making eyes at each other the entire film.
Well, and the filmmakers and the writers, they knew what they were doing.
They leaned into it.
All right, kids, buckle up. Here's the sexy trope / list of kinks that
we observed
we've
during
absorbed.
During the
during the
movie.
course of this on-screen relationship.
Okay, so we have kidnapping, bondage, knives to the throats, will they, won't they, love potions, 2 people on horseback, they're both tsunderes, rolling in the dirt, pinning, guy liner, kicking face, shirts
Is that
can't
one?
stay on for some reason, And then the master-slave dynamic.
And this is non-inclusive because, boy.
And like, you're my sun, my moon, my starlit sky.
Oh, bad poetry, sorry. Yeah, I'm just adding that to the list.
Yeah.
That'd be more kink for like masochism.
Yeah.
Like listening to bad poetry.
Yeah, there's lots of masochism in here.
Oh, yeah.
So, you kicked me in the face.
I love
makes
it.
me hot.
Well,
I
Sorsha's
hate
just
you,
like,
but I love you.
I have easily escaped from you now when I could have done it at any time.
Yeah,
And I'm definitely not hesitating, so you'll chase me. Definitely not.
Definitely
Please
not.
follow me.
She could
How come
definitely...
you're not following
Like,
me?
Sorsha is a badass up until the point that she joins the good guys, and then she has, like, one cool scene after that, but she kind of, like, all characterization just kind of stops, which is, like, my criticism of this.
Yeah.
Like,
Again, it's the evil sorceress to Tradwife pipeline.
Yeah.
Like, she starts out in this badass, like, black steel armor, and then at the end of the movie, she's like...
she's in, like, a nice soft white dress.
Yeah, Holly housewife, like, light linen, her hair done up, and she's just holding the baby.
Yeah.
Her hair does improve over the course of the film, presumably because she's not, camping in the wilderness anymore.
Yeah, with a helmet
but-
on her head and, rolling around in the dirt with
But-
Matt
Well, I'm
Mardigan.
sure she's still rolling around in other contexts.
How could it be any other way with
They,
her and
they
Matt?
save it for the weekends now.
Yeah. And, honestly, it's just, I feel like it's a bisexual dream.
It is. They're both beautiful.
Yeah, they're both
Once
beautiful.
he fixes his teeth.
Yeah, once he
Yeah.
fixes his teeth.
Ew.
When you first get introduced
You're like,
to him
"Whoa."
when he's imprisoned at the crossroads and he gives that smile to Willow
It's like,
and the other no, and you're just like, oh my gosh.
I wouldn't steal from a baby.
having actively contemplated stealing from a baby literally 1 second before.
Yeah, he definitely starts as a scoundrel, but, it's a charming scoundrel.
Yeah.
Well, he turns into the charming scoundrel.
Yes, he has to develop into it.
At first, he only thinks he's the charming scoundrel.
Yeah. At first, he way overestimates
He's just
his ability to.
a regular scoundrel.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and shift briefly over to discussing, like, one of the cool things about Willow is you can see the DNA of a lot of different movies that came before and movies that came after. You can see the influences on Willow and of Willow in so many movies. For instance, clearly Willow was drawing some inspiration from Lord of the Rings. And you can also see how Peter Jackson, from, like, probably watching this movie, how he took a lot of the sort of cinematography choices and applied them and elevated them, I guess.
Well, yeah, you can see it.
in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, you can see it.
We should say Willow drew inspiration from the Lord of the Rings books and, like,
Yes.
mythology, and then was made in 1988, so before the movies came out. And then watching Willow, there were just so many scenes that were similar, that felt very similar to the Lord of the Rings movies later on.
And it's almost like Peter Jackson must have gotten some inspiration for how he did the movies from Willow.
Well, this was also made by George Lucas and, like, Lucas Arts and stuff. And so, like, I like they're, like, traversing the wilderness kind of things. And so you have a shot of all of the guys, like, going over a ravine, and you see a sense of scale.
Yeah,
Well, and you
these
can-
really nice nature shots, too.
Oh, yeah. But you can also see, like, the LucasArts touch and, like, their use of wipes for scene transitions.
Yes, and
the creatures.
The creatures. They do a lot of stop motion animation creatures, one of which looks like basically a two-headed rancor.
Yep.
Yeah. With, like, kind of a ball sack face.
Almost exactly from, like, Star Wars.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you it's not a George Lucas film if you don't have something being
Some kind of
eaten,
critter, yeah.
being torn in half by another thing.
Yeah, which, by the way, like, the effects, let's talk
Yes.
about those. I feel like they held up surprisingly well, and there are a few that are just legit nasty. Like, the
so
turning...
there's legit body horror in this film repeatedly.
Yes. The scene towards the end where the evil queen turns the whole army into pigs, I remember distinctly that scared the shit out of me as a kid. And honestly, watching it as an adult, it is still really...
It's still kind of uncomfortable to watch now.
Yeah.
It's a slow transition, but oh my god, you can, like, honestly,
the
it's
horror.
Yeah.
It's just like watching Spirited Away when
Yeah.
the parents get turned into pigs. It's just that like same level of horror and like, oh, I don't like what is happening right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, because it's so, like, I think it's because it takes time. You have time to sit with, like,
Yeah.
sort of the intermediate stages, like the anamorph,
Well,
Yeah.
the middle morph.
Yes.
And the
like,
fact that they actually used like the practical effects.
Yes.
And it looks a little bit uncanny and gross, but that's
It
what
sells
makes
it.
it gross.
That's what sells it,
Is
yeah.
it looks like ugh.
I think the worst moment for me was when Willow used the magic on the troll.
Oh,
to-
okay,
Yeah.
The one thing that they did not do great was the trolls. Just
It was just-
Yeah,
just FYI.
it was just a
the
bunch of-
trolls are maybe like gorilla suits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a bunch of, like, Cirque du Soleil performers in gorilla suits.
yeah. So, but sorry, go.
Yeah, but there's a spot in the movie where Willow uses the wand and zaps the troll, and like it turns inside out, and then a two-headed creature comes out of it.
So it
so
turns
gross.
inside out. It turns like the hair of this gorilla suit falls off and flakes
Like,
off, and like
melts
it's
off.
this weird,
Fleshy.
almost fleshy fetus-looking dragon thing for a second, and then Willow just kicks it off and just yeets the fetus.
Yeah, it's
It's unpleasant.
yeah, but like,
Ugh.
but you know, the effects for being made in the 1980s,
They've aged remarkably well.
They've aged
Yeah.
really well, and
Like the brownies and the fairies in the forest. Like they are
the way they were green screened in. Yeah.
yeah, it was
like-
actually really clever.
Yes.
So that was pretty freaking cool, and also
There's like a bigger kind of, I don't know her name, but she's like a very ethereal kind of.
oh, Shalandria.
Yeah. She's the bigger kind of fairy, and she's all explaining to Willow like why the quest is happening and why it has to be him, and so on and so forth. He has a choice. Blah 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 blah.
It's
But,
very
like,
Galadriel.
Yeah, very reminiscent of Frodo visiting Galadriel.
But and like that whole scene, there's the green screening for that I think was done very well too, with Shalandria and the tiny little like glowing fairies. It's aged well. It still I think holds up, and I really enjoyed it. So I wasn't like cringing at the like that
No.
didn't age well.
Yeah.
Except the gorilla suit
Yeah.
trolls, which
The
were just like
trolls.
But
why
it's so brief.
yeah
You can survive
You can forgive
the brevity of it.
that.
should we transfer into aesthetics and just like scenery and stuff?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was gonna say the soundtrack is really cool too.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a really great soundtrack, but it's also kind of weirdly generic in places because
Yep.
so many works that came before and after
Used the
Willow
same tricks.
used a lot of the same
Yes.
sort of like the composer reused some elements. So it's good, but you've heard it before.
Yeah.
So, but also just the aesthetics, the
Like,
cinematography.
the very first couple opening shots, like whenever we're introduced to Willow's like hometown, I just keep looking at all these precious little cottages and just
and the pigs they
and-
use as draft animals.
yes, the pigs they're plowing the fields
It's
and like,
cottage-core perfection.
and I
Yes.
I fell in love with it. I wanted to live in this small tiny
Yeah.
village.
Well, again, going back to the comparisons to Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, you can see the DNA of Hobbiton
Yeah.
in this scene with the Nelwyn village, because it's
Yeah.
that soft focus cottage core. Everybody's really cozy
There's
and
like
happy.
a cute party.
yeah, it starts out with like a festival in the village.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and let's also talk about the wardrobe, the costumes.
yes.
So
Yes.
the costuming, especially, I did skip ahead and I watched the very first episode of Willow, like the series.
yeah.
And like comparing that wardrobe with this
Yeah.
wardrobe, it's more modern and it's like the colors are a lot more vibrant.
Well, and they're also like it's clean, and it just doesn't look as. Honestly, I feel like the costumes look a little like cheaper.
it doesn't look authentic.
Yeah, and
like
the
the costumes in this movie look more authentic.
Yeah,
They
they
look
look
lived in.
lived in.
Yeah.
They look like they're made of like natural fiber clothing, and the armor.
They look
armor
handmade.
is really interesting because it's like this whole mishmash of all these different kinds of
We did notice a lot of different influences.
yeah,
with
like
armor.
Japanese and Indian
Centurion.
Yeah, yeah.
and Roman,
But
but
some early Indian
Yeah.
armor and
and
armaments.
weapons, yeah. But they all kind of like end up synergizing really well together.
yeah, they made clever choices to make them look like they went together.
Yeah, and also give this feeling of like this is a fantasy world.
These visual elements did not combine in real life, But in this world, they coexist in this way. So,
Yeah. Oh, also the evil queen, Bavmorda's outfit.
okay, she serves looks the entire movie.
She does.
And I feel like she's very much riffing on the looks of the evil queen from
Snow White.
Because
Yes.
she
Yes,
has
she looks
She
like,
has the
very
wimple, she
similar.
has the crown.
the,
Yeah, the
the wimple and the
cowl and
crown, the color scheme, like, yeah.
Yeah, except the only one I have a problem with is like the final scene that she's in during the whole like wizard fight or whatever. She's wearing this mummy suit, these
Underneath
mummy
her wizard
bindings
robes.
underneath her robes. They also for some reason wrapped the baby up in like leather bondage, like as if Elora was gonna get away.
It's part of the ritual, babe.
They, like it is so bizarre.
It is a choice, and they made it.
But the rest of the wardrobe choices were just really good. And God, I want the clothing that the Nelwyn wear.
Can we also talk about General
the
Kale
skull
and his
helmet.
skull helmet?
Skull helmet.
Yeah,
yes.
General Kale and his skull helmet looked really good, and also instantly put me in mind of the Book of Three, the Chronicles of Prydain, the main sort of bad guy for that book. Which, by the way, we keep remaking the same fantasy things over and over again, but I'm like, the Chronicles of Prydain or Prydain, or however you say it, they're right there.
Because-
they're right there.
Because
made
Disney
a
tried.
cartoon.
Yeah,
Well,
Disney
it's-
tried.
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Disney, they made one animated movie, The Black Cauldron, which
and
was
they
completely
combined-
out of order.
They combined all of the... Black Cauldron is a completely different media morsel we'll get to.
Yeah.
But the gist is, there was a lot of executive meddling in that movie, and a lot of choices made, and we will discuss it later.
Yeah, but
That is
basically,
such
it's
a good series.
it is a good series, and they shouldn't be like, well, it didn't work this one time that we botched it,
And it
so
never
it will never work.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yep.
no, that's not.
Yep.
But anyway, but also there's Eric, Mad Mardigan.
Okay.
Golden
like
boy.
the
So-
weird, like sort of
Blondie
like
boy.
I wouldn't say it's a bromance, but they have a.
I'd say it's a bromance.
It is.
It's sort of like a stormy bromance.
Yeah.
He's literally like the golden boy. He has this golden blonde hair, and he wears the golden armor.
He's the one that's wearing the Golden Centurion helmet, which I'm like, oh.
He's the one who, under different circumstances, he would be the hero. If this were a traditional story, instead of Mad Mardigan, it would be him in the role of the bodyguard of the baby.
Yep.
But it's not, because this whole movie is basically subverting every single one of the tropes, because when you think about it, in most high fantasy movies, it ends with like two wizards battling or something, right? Well, we get two old ladies literally fighting over a stick and punching each other in the face.
It's great. It's one of the best cinematic fights I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, for real. And also, interestingly, in the end of that, like, it's not magic, it's not actual magic that saves the day. It is...
Illusion.
It's illusion. The thing
It's a
that...
callback to Willow's just parlor tricks. you
Yeah,
know?
because I
the
think
beginning.
that's really interesting, because when you have real magic, nobody expects, like, if you are an all-powerful sorceress, oddly, you can get tricked really easily by fake magic. Like, it's
Because you're expecting it to be real.
because you're expecting it to be real.
That's the level you're working at.
Yeah, real magic doesn't save the day. It is literally a parlor trick. The hero is not Eric,
Blonde, perfect boy.
the blonde, perfect boy, soldier, general man, or whatever. It is a Nelwyn and a scoundrel. and the chosen one literally never lifts a finger, like, because she's a baby.
Although she does raise some artful eyebrows.
She
These
does.
baby's
This
expressions
baby
are
can
fantastic.
act. Yeah.
That is like one of my biggest questions about this movie is how they got the baby to act at certain points. Because were they actually pouring water on the baby at that point to get her to cry?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, is this like, at what point do parents sign off and be like, this is okay? That's
This is
not
not.
okay.
Well, I think the question is, like, how much was the baby good at acting, and how much were there just, like, thousands of feet of B-roll of this
Where they
baby
were just
that
waiting
they
for
didn't
the right-
use?
Probably.
Yeah, that they were just like watching it, waiting for the baby to make the right
The
expression.
perfect
one
expression.
expression.
That might honestly make more sense, because
It was
then
either
you could just...
it was either good baby acting, good editing, or some combination of the two, and I strongly suspect it's the third one.
Yeah.
Because I have faith in that baby.
I also have a side note about Eric because
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen the movie with subtitles before today. So I always assumed the spelling of Eric was the modern spelling. And it's
Yeah.
like a
It's
very
AIRK.
trying to be medievalish spelling.
Yeah.
Trying to
Eric.
be like high fantasy.
Fantastical.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I always kind of liked that it was just like a common name compared to like all the other.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's, I don't know, like there were a lot of things that this story did that is highly unusual and subverted a lot of traditional tropes in ways that I still haven't seen all done in like one place.
Yeah.
Since
Or done
then.
as well.
Or done
Yes.
as well, yeah.
Because this movie, it just feels genuine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's heartfelt.
Yeah, it's not.
It's authentic.
It's authentic. It comes from a place of like they just wanted to do it this way, not
They're
you
trying
know.
to like make a point.
Yeah, they're not. It feels real and deep, and not just pandering.
Well, yeah, it's really easy to get in this mode of like trying to defeat expectations or subvert tropes and get really preachy about it, and it hits you over the head unless it's done with grace, which this movie does.
Yeah, yeah. It does a lot of things really, really well.
This movie subverts tropes without you realizing it at first.
Well, and perhaps, again, like, one of the things that it does really well that I still don't see a lot of, even now, is Willow is...
Good
he
man.
He is a good man. He has very positive masculinity. And he will apologize when he knows he's done something wrong.
He will express thankfulness and forgiveness.
Yeah, he will tell
loves
people when
his
they do
wife.
something
Yeah,
right.
he loves his
his wife.
wife.
He
And
loves
his
his kids. And you see Mad Mardigan beginning to mirror that back to him over the course of the movie. At first, he's just an asshole.
He's a bastard.
He's a bastard.
And
but
he refers to him in like a very derogatory slur.
Well,
and,
everybody
like,
refers
well,
to the Nelwyn in derogatory terms, which
Yeah.
is... But eventually he stops doing that. And he also, over the course of the movie, he ends up getting this place where he is encouraging Willow. He is checking on Willow and Alora's well-being. And he's just, it takes...
He's becoming a better man. He's not as
Yes.
self-centered
Yes.
as he was at the beginning.
And all because he was shown kindness, and Willow is also modeling that behavior, but in a not pretentious...
intentionally.
Yeah.
He's just doing
He's just
it.
doing it, and Mad Mardigan is responding to it. And it's so subtle during the course of the movie. Like, it's not like the movie draws attention to this.
Yeah, there's not one moment where Mad Mardigan's like, "Oh, I have realized the error of my ways,
Which
and I
doesn't
shall
really
be a better man."
And because that doesn't happen a lot in,
No.
like, in real life.
It's little moments.
It's little moments, and that's what makes this whole transformation and what makes that subversion of the typical male hero feel genuine, because it's not rubbed in your face. There's no fuss made about it. It just happens.
We could talk about favorite moments.
Oh yeah, that would probably be pretty good. All right, yeah. So
Okay.
why don't you start us off
Okay.
with favorite moments, Claire?
Well, one of my favorite moments is when Mad Mardigan is home aloneing the castle, right? The
Yes.
evil troops are getting ready to storm, and it's just him and Willow in Tir Asleen. They've come to this castle for help, but nobody's there because mysteriously the people are all turned to stone.
And that never gets resolved. We don't know.
No,
what
yeah,
happened.
we never really know what happens there. But so it's just him and Willow, and he's like the warrior. So he's trying to set all these booby traps for the evil soldiers, and it's very fun to see some of them play out.
Yes, I love the home aloning of the castle. That's really great. Jamie?
Absolutely no question. It's the two old ladies fighting over a stick.
Which I feel like gives sort of like sisters fighting over a Barbie energy.
Yes, and like it's never explicitly stated in the plot whether Bavmorda and Fin
Raziel.
Raziel are sisters, but they sure act like it.
Yeah, they kind of do.
But honestly, the climax of a film being essentially two elderly women fighting over a stick is one of the best things I've ever seen in my entire life. And it is giving some similar vibes to, as Claire pointed out in our conversation before the taping, very much a Gandalf and Saruman in the tower fight, because they're just yeeting each other all over the place, setting each other on fire. It's fantastic.
This was a lot more fun.
But they even have the same spin move where
Yes.
like Saruman spins Gandalf around.
On the
Except-
ceiling.
Yeah.
Except it's the good guy doing the spinning and cackling while
Yeah.
doing it. Like, I have never seen a quote-unquote good guy take such joy in inflicting pain.
Yeah.
Doing an evil cackle really well.
It is refreshing, actually.
It's fantastic. No, that I love that. I have a soft spot in my heart for crazy magical old women.
Yeah.
And I have two in
Yeah.
this movie.
Yes.
My favorite part is definitely the festival and
Oh,
the very start of the
The
film.
Nelwyn party.
Nelwyn party. You get to be introduced to Willow's kind of parlor tricks. You get to like see him like interact with the entire village. You realize that the village kind of sucks towards him, but like the overall feel and cottage-coreness just makes me just
Cute aggression is
Yes.
what you're experiencing.
yes.
I'm trying to narrow it down. My sister was reminding me again, like, how obsessed we were with Madmartigan. And at the time, before I, like, rewatched it, I couldn't remember why. And then I watched it and I was like, oh god. I see it. My tastes have moved on since then, but I can see why I was obsessed with this. So, like, one of the scenes that stands out to me is when Madmartigan gets, like, love potion number 9. and just,
Alien sex pollen.
and that
Got
whole
it. Yep.
like the goofiness that ensues, but I'm like a sucker for that. So like as a kid, I think that was like one of my favorites. Now though, okay, actually, you know what? Maybe one of my favorite scenes in Willow is the whole chase scene after Madmartigan and Willow and escape from the tavern, and they're like fleeing from Sorsha
They're in the
soldiers,
wagon.
and he's in drag, and this wagon is
What
falling
did you
apart.
call him, Mitch, when he was in the dress?
No, that was Jamie calling him.
Oh, it's
Maid Mardigan.
And his maid Mardigan's
instead of
disguise.
Mad.
Yeah, and he was like pulling apples out of his fake boobs and tossing them
Yes.
at the bad guys.
I mean, that whole sequence was actually like just a really good action
That's
sequence.
a really fun.
and it's
It's a very Indiana Jones action
it
sequence.
is, and it's
You could
it's,
just replace the bad guys with Nazis, and it's
Yeah.
1-to-1.
and it is hilarious and it's entertaining and it's interesting. Like it's oddly so normally character development scenes are the big ones for me, but there's no like really big scenes for that in Willow.
It happens in much smaller bits.
Yeah,
throughout.
I don't think there's really like as much a traditional 3-act structure to this film. It's more like a high fantasy book of the 70s and 80s that kind of like meanders its way to where it needs to go. There's a couple of critical scenes for Willow that are all really good, but for some reason, for this movie, the thing that stands out for me is the love potion number 9 thing, and also Madmartigan in drag driving this like cart and throwing fruit out of his fake boobs at at the pursuing soldiers. So
I also have to say, I really enjoy any scene that the brownies are in.
Yeah.
I just find them. They're very much comic relief, but I enjoy that.
Yeah, they very much fit the bill of like those two guys character trait. A lot of movies have this thing where there's those two guys that bumble around in the background
Yeah.
of the plot and provide comic relief. The brownies are those two guys.
yeah, and they're not super helpful, but they are kind of helpful,
In
and
a
they
couple
do
of
end up.
pivotal moments, they do things that are necessary.
Yes.
Very, very Jay and Silent Bob.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I do like when they all get turned into pigs later. There's 2 little pigs running
Yeah,
around.
the brownies turn into piglets.
Yeah. I'm not going to linger on the body horror because there was
No.
so much.
Yeah, content warning for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not quite John Carpenter's The Thing,
But there are
but
definitely.
it gets close, weirdly.
Well,
Yeah.
if you don't like that puppety stuff again, I don't think you'll like the part where they turn into pigs.
Yeah.
Or the flesh
trolls.
dragon.
Yeah.
They
Or-
definitely
or-
worked for their PG rating.
Yeah.
Or Finn Rizal when she's being transformed into all these different animals, and it's kind of like.
There's an uncomfortable uncanniness to the flesh morphing.
However,
Yes.
what isn't uncanny about that is whenever the animals speak.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
Yes.
they do the lip flaps really organically, and it
Yeah,
actually
better
for the
than-
time it works really well.
Yeah.
Well,
it's-
even for now, it's done
Yeah.
better than a lot of movies have done
Yeah.
lately.
Yeah.
I was impressed.
Like, whenever CG animals in movies now, like, talk, it is very, like, ugh. But somehow they did it, I think because they did it with a little bit more of, like, slightly traditional animation, very subtle. And so when Finn Rizal is talking as the Australian possum, it doesn't weird you out.
Well,
You're
you
like,
buy
wow,
it.
okay, this
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, you're like, well, this possum might be talking.
Yeah.
They chose a good angle to film her with.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
so
a big part of it.
okay, typically what you'd think is like they try to film like up or whatever, and you'd see the jaw flapping, but no, they film
Top down.
top down, and it hides the chin, so that
Yeah.
way the only thing that's actually coming open is just the little bit of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, they picked their angles so they didn't have to do as much work, which means the audience doesn't have to do as much work.
Yeah.
And they
Yep.
also just didn't try to CGI the whole animal. They
Yeah.
actually used an animal.
They
which
used a real
helps
animal.
so much.
You're
Yes.
so right.
Yeah. So, yeah, props for that one, too. It's just a good movie, guys. So
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it, which I'd be surprised if you listen this far if you haven't seen it, because probably half the stuff that we're saying won't make sense if you
Yeah.
haven't seen it. But if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It is a good one.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a good place to go into our dessert round. For me, as a kid, this very much deepened and informed my love for fantasy. Yeah, I just love that aesthetic and that the themes that go with a high fantasy story. I also think it helped maybe not plant the seed, but water the seed of the kinds of characters, specifically male scoundrel characters I like to write. Because of course it wasn't Willow, the wholesome, yeah, like the wholesome guy that I was obsessed with. It was the bastard who he's really good deep down and he gets better. So I think that's kind of how it informed me as a kid. As an adult, going back and watching this, I see how they subverted all these tropes, and there's so much food for thought there. It really feels different, and it really feels fresh, honestly. Even though it was made in 1988, it's just a different kind of movie.
It doesn't feel overdone.
Yeah, it still is doing something different than what you see typically. And so, I don't know, I'm just going to be sitting here thinking about the brilliance of how they took a lot of the traditional high fantasy tropes and turned them on their heads and how it worked. With the exception of Sorsha.
Yeah.
And how she just kind of her characterization stopped once she got with Mad Mardigan and got on the good team. That is the one criticism I would have of this story. That's where they dropped the ball.
Her characterization was a little lacking, but the love story was sweet enough I'm willing to overlook it.
Yes, there was a lot of good
Lead up.
Well, I mean, it happened really fast, but it was entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
And we did say this movie passed the
Bechdel test.
Bechdel test.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because two named women characters have conversations with each other about things that are not men multiple times.
Yeah.
So it passes the Bechdel test several times over, actually.
In fact, I don't think even Sorsha doesn't talk about Mad Mardigan to anyone.
No, she talks about mostly
Matt-
killing babies.
Yeah.
She just has that look whenever he's on screen, and she's
Yeah,
just
she
like,
doesn't have to say anything. Her
Yeah.
eyes say everything.
Yeah, and she has a brief discussion with him about, oh, you were spouting poetry at me last night. And he was like, no, I wasn't. Wait, did I? Yeah. Sorry about that. And then she's like, fuck you. And that's when she escapes very easily, when she clearly could have escaped the whole time.
She was feeling him out.
She was
And
feeling
what-
him out.
Oh, yeah.
She was
And
feeling
once,
something.
and once she thought the vibes were off, she escaped immediately.
Yeah.
yeah, she was feeling him off because she was riding right in front of him on a
And
horse.
she was like, stop holding me so tight. And it's like, you know why he's holding me.
Oh, girl.
Girl. So anyway, sorry. So that would be how it's inspired me and continues to inspire me as a creative?
Well, like I said previously, I'm kind of a latecomer to this one. But I will say that this movie plays in a lot of similar spaces that I like to as a creative. So, like, as Jess was saying, taking classic fantasy tropes and just sort of, like, playing with them. I love
your
that
jam.
shit. That's, like, my entire jam.
Well, and the humor, the brand of
The
humor in
humor,
this, which is
yeah.
very, like...
It's lighthearted.
Yeah.
It's well-mean. It's not cruel humor.
Yeah, and it also occasionally... It's not fourth wall breaking, but it's sort of cheeky. Like, when the like, High Aldwin, whatever he is...
I love him so much.
He's, like, the sorcerer of the Nelwyn village.
Yeah, he's, like, the old sage character.
And he can do real magic, but, like, half of his job is just...
pretending to do magic to get people to do what they were already going to do anyway.
Yeah, what they need to do anyway, and sort of like mixing that sort of just canniness with actual magic, and just being humorous and just being cheeky.
Yes.
Quick, follow the bird!
The bird's going back to the village.
But ignore the bird, follow the river.
There was
Things
that.
like that.
There was that, and he was like trying to prophesy using the bones, and he turns to Willow and says, "The bones don't tell me anything," and just starts making stuff up.
Yeah, the bones tell me nothing.
Well, and it's very much, if anybody listening has read any of Terry Pratchett's books featuring his witches, it's very much playing in that space of most of magic is just psychology.
Yeah.
And understanding how people work. You
Yeah.
don't have to pull any real magic if you can just convince people that you know more than you do.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love
Yeah.
that so much. I love the crazy old ladies fighting at the end. That is something I'm always a sucker for. But very much like playing in the space of fantasy comedy. It's my entire thing.
Yeah.
So even if I didn't grow up with this, it probably has at least inspired me to continue on the track I already wanted to go on.
Yeah.
And the other thing is definitely like models of like positive masculinity and narrative. Because like so many stories, especially in like the early to mid 2000s doldrums of storytelling, every dude on screen was a toxic asshole.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to find this gem from the late 80s of all times of multiple men being depicted on screen having some degree of emotional intelligence, being
or growing
into it.
Yeah.
Being caring, having their most important skills being caretaking and creative, things that are creative and generative, not destructive. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
So I take away mostly feelings of nostalgia. Like, this movie, watching it, heavily reminded me of really great pieces like Hook. I grew up with Hook, and just like that whole ridiculous amounts of scenery and just people playing parts that they actually truly enjoy playing.
Yeah, the care and the craft.
The care and the craft, and like just the love that this movie has given me a lot of just gumption and joy of I want to keep watching things like this that inspire me to have fun with stuff.
Yeah. I mean, well, that joy feeds creativity. I think a lot of people have this impression that like suffering and angst feed creativity, and they do
in a way.
Sometimes. You know,
Sometimes.
when you're working through the things that have hurt you in your life, like that can be very you can
Formative.
you can channel that into a creative medium. But people forget that another part of creativity, another thing that feeds it, is joy.
It is.
It's experiences, so whether those experiences are good or bad, you can use them.
Yes.
It's honestly just so easy to just kind of get heavily buried by depression and just bad things constantly happening to you, that just little bits of joy, like, you know, a happy family getting together and hugging at the end of a movie, especially in this time of age. It's really eye-opening, and like
It is.
I feel like we kind of need that as a society a little bit more.
We
do.
More happy endings.
Yeah. Well, and also just from what you were saying, like the cottage-core vibes.
The cottage-core vibes.
up your cottage-core
Like,
game.
honestly, why is it that America has really boring architecture? Like, it's just architecture and just the overall, like,
Concrete
city
rectangles,
vibes
yeah.
are just so boring and concretey, and just, it doesn't spark joy. And, like, I don't know, this harkens to, like, a more moss-filled, like, fantasy land of, let's go get lost in the woods.
Yeah.
So a couple of side things that I personally do, cherry topping, so to speak. I have a list of Wilhelm screams on this one. We have 3. And then, let's see here. What was it? My hamometer.
Oh, the hamometer is critical.
Yes. So the hamometer is a reference to just like how exceptionally scene-chewy this entire movie is. So your 1s would typically be like something exceptionally serious, like
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List, so on and so forth. And then 10 being something closer to akin of
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus or Army of Darkness. I rated this movie as a 7, and I tell you why. 5 points go to Val Kilmer himself, because he chews that scenery really well.
That's how his teeth get so clean over the course of the movie.
Yeah, you're not wrong. 3 for everyone else, including the Goat Witch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The Goat Witch actually gets 2 points in that regard. And then -1 for the baby. Because she is by far the best actress in that entire film.
And reduces the ham rating.
She does.
She plays it straight. That baby plays it straight.
Yes, she does.
But she's also very sassy.
The one scene where she raises the eyebrow, I'm still wondering how they did
that
do it.
perfect Spock eyebrow.
Yeah.
They're like,
I don't know. I guess I would say watching it when I did in my life, I just noticed how much movies that I enjoy these days, they've almost directly paralleled scenes from Willow. Like, going back and watching it seems to have had a big influence on a lot of fantasy movies that have come out since then.
Yeah.
And if you've never seen it, you would never know. But going back and watching it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is almost directly reminiscent of this scene. And like the scene at the end when they're all celebrating because they've defeated the evil witch is very reminiscent of Star Wars, as we pointed out.
Yeah.
And when Willow returns home to his village, it's very reminiscent of in Lord of the Rings when the hobbits return home and at the end of their journey.
Only way different vibes.
Yeah, way
because
different
they're
vibes.
happy.
But like, there's a lot of parallels that I appreciate noticing now that I have seen Willow.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine middle school is such an angsty time. Do you think that this movie was kind of a breath of fresh air in that time period?
This is the time period where when you watch a movie like Willow, you pretend that it's like,
so
for littler kids, but you actually secretly really enjoy it because it's such a good movie. But you're like, when I was like, I'm watching this for my little brother, but really I was like, let's watch Willow.
I'm watching it for me.
Yeah, because it's just a fun movie, and it, as you get older and you're like, I don't care, I'm going to watch this for myself.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we've consumed everything.
Have we fully digested the meal?
Yeah, it's time to clear the plates.
Yeah, we've finished everything off. Time to clear the plates.
Thanks for having me on this episode of Media Morsels. I greatly enjoyed being a guest for Willow, and I hope I can do a few more with you guys.
We would love to have you. And just like all of you listening out there, we would love to have you at the table too. So if you enjoyed yourself, go ahead and let us know. Find us on our social media on Instagram at media_morsels, or the upcoming Discord, which we will make and open up to kind of let anyone who's interested come and talk about these movies with us, with each other. Honestly, I would just love to see these movies being recognized more and talked about more. And so with that, we hope you'll join us again next week, and we'll save you a seat.